The Flash Vertical Velocity is opening on March 29th of 2025, which is the day that this video is being aired to you. It is located at Six Flags Great Adventure in Jackson, New Jersey. It is a Vekoma Super Boomerang coaster with onboard sound and audio, as well as an awesome lighting package. It has a length of 1,430 feet, speeds of 59 miles an hour over two inversions that you take twice, so there are four inversions, has a pretty solid G-force of about 4 according to RCDB, and has a height of 172 feet. Holy moly, there's so much to digest and talk about with this ride, because from the looks of it, it looks kind of boring and it doesn't have much going on, but from ride experience, this ride is going to give you the ultimate shock. Let's talk about Flash Vertical Velocity at Great Adventure.
Now get ready. Here we go.
Now, as with every roller coaster review on my channel, before we talk about the ride, let's talk about how to get there. The Flash Vertical Velocity is located at the front of the park, off to the right-hand side of the main entrance in the DC Universe / Metropolis section of the Movie Town area in Great Adventure. So basically, you're going to turn to the right once you get to the main fountain, and you're going to hold to the right again, and you will be walking underneath Flash Vertical Velocity. What you then want to do is walk towards the Justice League Battle for Metropolis Dark Ride and keep to your right, and you're going to see the main entrance sign for Flash Vertical Velocity, which was the same location where you would go for Cyborg Cyberspin when that ride used to be at the park. Now, the new entrance is for Flash Vertical Velocity, and the exit, which was going to be the original entrance for the ride, is now the true and one only exit. So they changed a little bit from what originally was advertised from the ride and from its first ever animated POV. However, I think this is a very welcome change. It does allow for a more bigger presence and a much more open space when you access such a big attraction like Flash is. So let's talk about the overall presence of the ride before we get into the overall ride layout, because obviously the ride layout is pretty straightforward, but there's so much that happens after that. So a couple things to know right away. Even though I will say they are using the Cyborg Cyberspin queue line as extended queue for this attraction, I think it's going to be something where they might use it. I don't know how much they are going to use of it, but it'll be very interesting to see what they do over the course of time. Now, because this ride is located at the front of the park, this ride is going to get lines. They're running one train. It has 2 seats across and 2 rows. Total 24 riders could fit in a train. So it's a pretty sizable train. It's just that, again, there's only one train to work with. Now, obviously, Great Adventure's biggest thing right now is that they need capacity rides. We'll talk about how I think this ride could be a good capacity contender. However, running one train isn't going to help its case all the time, and I think this ride could be in one of those instances. Now, luckily, there are ways that this ride sort of alleviates that in the queue line itself. So first off, with Cyborg entirely gone and ripped out, they basically added a bunch of Star Labs signs, as well as this kind of middle staging area right where Cyborg was, which eventually will probably be used for like character meet and greets, like for Flash, or maybe even any other DC superheroes that might want to make a return to the park, which would be great to see because we saw a lot of Flash over in the 2024 season. So maybe we could then see some other DC Universe characters like Batman or even Superman show up. I don't know necessarily, but it is a possibility nonetheless. When you get into the queue line itself, you'll notice some banners on the right-hand side, which talks about how you are basically about to enter this Speed Force transporter that's going to take you through the Speed Force. It's really, really cool. The decals and the signs look really, really nice. They look great. I like how they're kind of spaced out. I kind of wish they had them on both sides, but that's kind of a little bit too much of an ask on my end. This is one of the things that they recovered from Cyborg that they decided to save and just re-theme, and I think that was a very smart decision. Once you get through that whole section, Then you get to your double-sided lockers. These are the exact same ones from El Toro. So if you know how the ones at El Toro work, it works the exact same way here, and we'd go from there. After that, we then get into the indoor queue itself, where there will eventually be a hologram talking about the actual ride and the storyline to the ride itself, which kind of plays on like an auto spiel every 10 minutes, which we heard throughout the portion of our day when we were riding this ride. So when we were there, they did not have this up, nor was everything inside the indoor queue was finished. So that was a little bit disappointing on our end. However, over time, probably if you're watching this video within maybe a month or two after the fact, you might be looking back knowing that there wasn't much of anything outside of this sort of red and gray box on the right side of the indoor queue. That's probably going to be entirely filled, and it's probably going to have a lot of theming by the time you come back to this video in 3 months. So I will tell you right now, it does look very barren. They did have a little bit of some like black coloring and to change up a little bit of it, a little bit of red in there. But again, if it looks very plain right now, just know that there are a lot more scenery and set pieces going in that area of the indoor queue at some point, and there will be some kind of video for you to watch as you go through it. And no, it won't be a TV. I will leave it at that. After you get through the indoor queue, you are then sent around the backside of the stalled Immelman, around a small electric house, and then you'll get to your station. You climb a couple of stairs, and then you are designated to one of 12 rows. Again, this ride seats 24 riders at a time. And once you board your train, you pull down the harness, the over-shoulder harness. It is a little bit difficult to pull down these harnesses. They're used, I believe it's hydraulics that they're using for the harnesses on the ride. I could be mistaken about that, but it kind of felt like it based on how difficult it was to pull down on them. Um, Oddly enough, if you pull down really hard on the harness when you're putting it down, they kind of bounce back up a little bit. I don't know if that kind of scares me a little bit, if the restraints are going to be an issue for the ride, but honestly, I'm just going to go with it at this point because I'm kind of just trusting that it's supposed to do that. Sometimes it might do it, it might not, but things happen, I guess. I will say that these trains are very, very comfortable. So you sit down, it's almost like you're kind of laying back in like a car in like the driver's seat a little bit, or even like in the front passenger seat a little bit. It kind of had that feeling a little bit, and the restraint itself is very comfortable. Even though like the black bar that's there would try to touch your thighs most of the time, which it would, it doesn't really press down, and nor does it really come down even further on the ride. At least I didn't really notice. I rode this thing about 15 times on media day, so I didn't really think that the restraint forced anything down on me when I was riding. And also they have that same little rubber Vekoma strap as well that's held together by what looks like seat belts. If you sit like behind a row, you'll kind of see it on either side of the rider. I did not mind this at all. I actually felt like that I felt secure, but also I felt like I had room to breathe. So it's definitely not forcing anything onto you with that at all. It's actually very comfortable. So once you get into your train and then you're all sent, you're all cleared, the floor is going to drop on either side of you, and then you eventually accelerate forward. This will be launch 1 of 7. It's a punchy launch, but it definitely is not going to send you over to stalled Immelman. So it does a rollback and does it in the form of a second launch. This takes you at a much faster speed, and this sends the entire train up the stall backwards 90 degrees. Everybody in the train will be facing down to the ground. So you get a lot of power in this backwards launch, like a lot of power. And you get some great hang time, some air time a little bit when you go up that backwards spike. It is a really, really cool element, and it gets you really into the mood of what this ride is going to do. You get a little bit of some G's as well if you're going backwards when you're really just sent straight up the spike. It's really, really cool. It gets a little bit of G's going as well. A lot of the stuff going backwards, you'll notice to be a lot more intense, mainly because you don't exactly know what's going to happen. And we'll cover that bridge when we get to everything going reverse. Now, we launch forwards, and this is launch number 3. This sends you at the 59 miles per hour top speed, and this sends you straight into your stalled Immelman. I said from the start when this layout came out that I believed that this was going to be the best moment of the ride, and let's just say I'm glad I was right. The fact of the matter is this: not only do you get to experience this kind of level of hang time, but you get to experience this level of hang time twice. When you are upside down on this stalled Immelman, you are literally upside down for a solid flat 3 seconds. I kid you not. It is the best stall in Great Adventure, and I've ridden a ton of RMC roller coasters. Well, by that I mean I've ridden 2 as of the making of this video. Yeah, this is the best stall I think I've ever done. And I've even talked to people that have ridden a bunch of RMC roller coasters that have 0G stalls on them. They are saying this is the best stall that they have ever done. And I believe it. The hang time you get is absolutely ludicrous. It's so insane that it feels illegal. Like, there is not a doubt in my mind that you are going to not be in your seat when you're in this. It's guaranteed that your booty will be out of the seat for this element for a solid 3 seconds. I am dead serious when I say it's 3 seconds flat when you're going forwards and you're just hanging upside down. It is some fantastic hang time. And it really just puts Jersey Devil's stall to absolute shame. It makes that 0G stall on Jersey Devil honestly feel like a 0G roll. That's how crazy this stalled Immelman is, that stall from the Immelman. And it later becomes a dive loop, but we'll talk about that because we hit launch number 4, which sends you into a double up. Now, this double up does give you some great airtime when you go from that first hill going into the second hill. If you're in the front row, you do get a pop of floater going forward into the double up, so that's definitely a very welcome thing to look for. You don't get much airtime at all if you're really in any other row, like row 3, if you're in like car 3 and back, or car C to car F. You're not going to get much airtime on that second hill, but the front 2 cars, car A and B, you could get some good floater there. Going down into the Raven turnaround, it's like a 9-inverting dive loop kind of deal. And then after that, you hit launch number 5. This takes you into what I've called the chiller roll. It's basically like a heartline inline twist kind of 0G roll inversion that basically imitates what Batman and Robert the Chiller's former 0G roll used to be. It basically is the exact same shaping. This ride secretly pays homage to Batman and Robin the Chiller in every kind of way. And many people have said that this ride is better than Batman and Robin the Chiller. I've never ridden Batman and Robin the Chiller personally, but I can honestly understand where they are coming from with this. After that chiller roll, you're then sent up the same spike that you went backwards, but now you go forwards. And this is where you go backwards. You go back the same way you came. It's a shuttle coaster, so it's not a full circuit layout. So you got to do everything backwards. So you go backwards through the chiller roll. It's a very comfortable inversion. As mentioned earlier, you hit launch number 6, which is that same valley that goes from the non-inverting dive loop, which now basically turns into a non-inverting Immelman. After that, the double up that you took earlier turns into a double down. Now, these 2 elements back to back, the non-inverting Immelman and the double down, are probably the most intense moments on the ride. The non-inverting Immelman going back, that non-inverting dive loop going backwards is the most intense moment on this ride, especially if you're in the back row. You pull some really strong G's here, and it does take you by surprise if you're not ready for it. It's a really neat portion of the ride that really caught me off guard the first time I rode it. And it's honestly the moment that I actually think caught me so off guard that I was starting to get a little bit uneasy. Which, like, and this was mainly because I was riding the ride like 15 times and over the span of like 7 hours. So this is not a ride to marathon a very long time with, from what I've determined. At least for me, that moment in particular definitely does take me a little bit off guard and can catch you by surprise. Going into the double down, though, you don't see that bottom hill coming, so you are sent out of your seat when you hit that bottom hill right then and there. So it's a very fun shock when that happens, and it does throw you off guard because you're going backwards. You don't know what's going to happen. And then you hit launch number 7, and this takes you into the stalled implement again, which then becomes a stalled dive loop. And this is the same exact thing as I mentioned earlier with the stalled implement. You literally hang there for a solid 3 seconds. But I think the backwards variant is way better than the front variant. And the reason for it is that you enter that stalled implement or stalled dive loop, whatever you want to call it. You enter that not fully upside down. So you're still hanging upside down, but you're slowly reaching that point where you'll hit the actual point of being upside down, and your whole body is still slowly making it feel even more drastic when you're sent upside down and you hang and you continue to just hang there. I could just picture on opening day how many people are just going to have their hands up during this moment and just let their body just absolutely just sink into their harness and just let their whole entire body fall off of that seat, because that stall going backwards is crazy, and it gets crazier until you hit the apex of the inversion, where then you turn all the way up on yourself before you enter the station again, and that takes you into the brakes, and you pause where you started the ride before. This ride has absolutely everything that you would want in a roller coaster. Do you want airtime? You got it. Do you want inversions? You got it. Do you want hang time? You got it. This ride has the full package. It has everything that a roller coaster would want to have and more. It is honestly a fantastic supporting coaster in Great Adventure's lineup that really benefits the current top 3 in the park. Now, that begs the question, where do I place Flash Vertical Velocity on my top 10 for Great Adventure? And after giving it a couple of rides, I felt like giving this ride, honestly, the benefit of the doubt. I really like this ride at the number 4 spot. And let me tell you why. Medusa is a great roller coaster. It didn't run very well in 2024. Who knows how it's going to run in this season 2025. Batman is a very intense roller coaster, and it's not going to be for everyone because it's purely about intensity. But Flash just has everything that you would want in a roller coaster. It's a shuttle coaster, but it actually has a lot more going for it. It's going to have onboard audio, which is playing the CW Flash theme song. And then it's going to have it has a lot more theming going on. And it has so much different things, just making it so emotional for like viewers that were like so distraught over the fact that this thing was delayed to 2025. But let me just tell you right now, if that's still hitting you in the rear, listen, I'm sorry, but you just got to know that the wait is worth it. This ride is so good. Yes, it's not the ride that we all wanted, but it's certainly the ride that Great Adventure itself needed. They needed a roller coaster like this. They needed a multi-launch coaster that has a little bit of everything, that's not overly intense, but it still has those intense moments that might have a little bit of some inversions and some other quirky elements to it. This ride is absolutely perfect for this park's lineup, and it really is a great supporting coaster. You need to get out here to Six Flags Great Adventure to ride Flash Vertical Velocity, because once again, this ride is going to be a sleeper hit, and it's going to shock you when you get on and when you get off the ride. Let me know what you guys think of Flash Vertical Velocity at Six Flags Great Adventure. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and always thank your ride operators. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I will see you all in the parks real soon. Bye.
Here we go.
Park 10.